And
what is on your business card?
on my business card, I think it says Creative Studio 3 Localization Lead or Localization. I don't know what it says. I don't have one. Well, that's the thing. It's like I do so many different things that there isn't really one. It's not like, okay, I'm an art director or I'm a programmer. They just have me do a lot of different things. And localization is one of the main things that I do. But hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about today all of the other things that I do as well.
I asked my good friend Pete, who is a massive Final Fantasy fan for a very long time. I was like, yeah, we met this really cool guy called Koji Fox, and he freaked out. He was like, Koji Fox is a legend, dude, in the Final Fantasy community. So he was really stoked that we got a chance to speak, and I'm really excited. And obviously all the work that because obviously we filmed a video with you that will be out at some point soon, or maybe now.
Hopefully by the time this episode's out.
It should be up by now, right?
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun, and it was really cool getting to chat with you just then. So we were like, we got to have you on the podcast.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, I think obviously it would be great to hear about first what you do. Obviously you've mentioned a bit about it, and then perhaps how you got into it. Because obviously being in Japan, it's quite the journey to get here to work in a Japanese company and for so long as well.
Yes, it's been, I joined Square Enix the day it became Square Enix. So I interviewed with Squaresoft.
Right.
Back in 2000, I want to say it was 2003 when the merger happened. 2003 April was when I joined. So I probably interviewed back in 2002 towards the end of the year with Squaresoft.
Right.
And it was a matter of basically I was teaching up in Hokkaido. I had actually studied in Japanese university over here for 4 years in Hokkaido. Got my teaching license, got my certification, was a teacher for 3 years in a junior high school, was teaching English, but most of the time I was coaching basketball. The first day I came in and they're like, okay, Koji, you're going to be an English teacher. You're also going to be coaching basketball. I'm like, any reason? It's like, because you're tall. Like, and for him, it wasn't like, it wasn't a joke. It was just like, tall in American basketball. And I'm like, okay, sure, I can try. And it turned out that, like most of it was basketball. Like immediately every day the school ends at like 2:33. Immediately basketball practice until
Wait, have you
like
had
7,
any experience
8
in
o'clock.
basketball up until that point?
I played a little basketball. I'm a fan of the Portland Trailblazers, being from Oregon.
Right.
But I'd never coached before.
Right.
But so I was learning on the job. But it was a lot of basketball coaching and teaching English. And I would just go home tired every day and play Final Fantasy 11. And I was just online one day checking out if there was, some tips for getting it. And I saw that Square Enix was hiring. And I'm like,
At this point of being in Japan, were you pretty fluent at speaking Japanese?
Yeah,
as well?
I mean, I had, again, being the teacher, I wasn't like an assistant teacher. I was just a regular teacher there. So I had my own homeroom. I was doing parent-student conferences, parent-teacher conferences. And so my Japanese was fine to get through, day-to-day stuff. And then I saw that they were hiring for localization, and they were hiring for Final Fantasy 11 localization. I'm like, I know Japanese.
Yes.
I know English. I'm playing FF11. I can do this. How hard could it be? Ha 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 ha. I took the test. Before you take the test, you had to submit a writing piece. They had me write. I think they asked me to write, choose a Final Fantasy character from any Final Fantasy game.
Yes.
And they're warped into Japan.
Yes.
And write 1,000 words on their adventure.
So you had to do some creative writing as well.
And so I chose the ninja Shadow and had him
the goat.
Yes, and I had him warped into Shibuya. And he's just he thinks everyone's mercenary, so he just starts going on this rampage and killing all these people in Shibuya. Somehow they called me back. And then I did a test, a Japanese to English translation test. I had a bunch of interviews, and and they were looking for someone to translate Final Fantasy 11. I knew the game, so maybe they thought, hey, this will save us on training because he's already
understand the game.
And it all kind of started from there. And then I worked on FF11 for a number of years. From there, I got to work on usually in the localization department. If you're on an online game, they usually move you to an offline game to get experience on both because just the way that they're created is so completely different. After working on 11 for a couple years, I worked on Dirge of Cerberus,
You're telling us about this. The game that didn't
the
do too well.
ill-fated,
Yeah.
yes, the third-person shooter in the Final Fantasy VII world, starring
Yes.
Vincent Valentine.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, it was an experience.
It sounds like peak 2000s. Like this is this thing that would come out in the 2000s.
Yes, it was a lot of fun working on it. It was the first game that I worked on that had full voice for the cutscenes, so I got to go to voice recording for the first time and work with voice actors, and that was a lot of fun.
Was that nerve-wracking when you had to work with voice actors the first time? Because you're like, this isn't my... you know.
Well, luckily, the voice director for the Japanese version came with me. So in the studios in LA, it was myself as well as the Japanese voice director as well. And so we were both there in the studio. And of course, that voice director didn't understand any English, but was kind of taking my word for it on the acting, also giving me, tips and tricks, especially for like battle voices and things like that I hadn't done, and what are the best way to do these. And so I learned a lot from the voice director. Halfway through though, they went back to Japan because they had to work on the Japanese version. So I'm like, okay,
It's just me now.
a lot of interesting stuff in that. Voice actors are a unique lot. Some of them, I mean, they're all, everyone that I've worked with has been, absolute pros when it comes to voice acting, but they're quirky. And maybe it's also because it was LA as well. So it's got the Hollywood.
You get the peak quirky.
There was one time, you have the booth, right? And you have the big window that you can see. We're in the control room, they're in the booth, and you can kind of, see them.
Yeah.
And then when they're standing up in front of their mics. And so we're in between takes, and all of a sudden I look back and the guy's gone. He's not in the room anymore. I'm like, where did he get? Excuse me, are you? And then he pops up. He's like, sorry, I was just doing some push-ups. It's like, okay.
I had to hype myself up.
So the dude was just like in there,
fair enough.
in between lines, doing push-ups,
Maybe you need to keep
getting a
the
couple
energy
reps
up,
in. I
Yeah.
guess. That was a lot of interesting characters, and learned a lot about voice recording, what to do, what not to do. What to do better. Lots of stuff to build on. And then from there, I worked on this game called Code Commanders, which came out in Japan and was all ready to come out in the West until it released in Japan and didn't do as well as maybe the company thought it was going to do.
Right.
And then they thought, well, we probably don't need to do this in English. And so canceled the game after I had. Are they saying you can't talk about this? Okay, no. I was thinking.
No. We're just looking at the.
Code
you can
Commanders.
pull it up.
It was a really cool game. It was the first game directed by. He was an art director called Naoto-san.
Yeah.
You maybe know his art from like Final Fantasy VII and lots of different Square Enix games.
Right.
One of Square Enix's
But it was a
best
property that
others.
wasn't Final Fantasy. It was a
Yes, it was a new IP.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
And it was another action game. So again, like Square Enix is like known for the RPGs, but for some reason, hey, it's the 2000s. Let's start doing a bunch of third person.
Because it was very popular at the time.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it was like,
And this wasn't as popular as they probably hoped it would be.
Yeah.
The box art is so sick.
It
though.
is.
But you'd already done all the work.
And the thing is, like, I was on the project while they're working on the Japanese, and this is back in the day when they make the Japanese first and then
Figure it out after.
figure out, do the localization later. And so I had gotten on the project early enough that, okay, I'm just going to start working on it. They hadn't told me to work on it. There's like, just play the game, get used to it. But like, I'm going to do this.
Oh, wow.
And I had translated the whole game, and literally the next week they're like, about that, Koji. And so there's a bunch of files on my computer somewhere with the whole script of Code Commanders translated into English. So if they ever decide,
there is a translation out there. If they ever want to
ready to go.
it's ready. Although I'd probably go back and retranslate. I was young back then. So.
Right.
Is this game like a cult classic, or people still talk about it, or is it kind of a forgotten time?
So I did mention this when I was in America once, and one guy was like, "Oh my God, Code Commanders! I imported that. That's the greatest game ever."
Yeah.
Literally, one guy so far has told me.
Right.
So
You've
there's
probably made
one.
like 5 people extremely happy to mentioning
Yes.
this.
Who knows? Who knows? The thing is, Code Commanders. It was very difficult. There was a high learning curve.
Yeah.
It wasn't a known IP because it was new.
Right.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I thought it had a quirky story. It was all about like DNA.
Yeah.
And there's like these. Play it, find it, and play it.
I guess I'll have to.
PlayStation 2,
PlayStation
Code
2.
Commanders.
I'm sure I can find it. I'm sure I can get a
Yeah.
copy. Shouldn't be difficult in
This was
Japan. That's so cool though. And then obviously after that game,
after that, went back to Final Fantasy XI, helped out with, I think it was the Wings of Altana expansion. And then that was about the time when they started talking about, okay, we're going to make the sequel to FF11 Online, which would be Final Fantasy XIV. This was when it was still under the director Tanaka-san's control. It was the 11 team that was going to be creating the new 14, the 1.0, the dreaded 1.0. And I worked on that. I worked with the lore creator, a guy named Kenichi Iwao, that did all the lore for 11, also did that original lore for Final Fantasy 14. We were building the world together, naming the races, figuring out these backgrounds. And we kind of did this, together. It was the first time I got to do actual lore work instead of just localization work.
It sounds like a lot more than just what people maybe assume, which is just pure translation. It sounds like there's a lot more on the creative side that you're involved in.
That was the really cool thing about the Final Fantasy 11 team. And then, those people that moved over to Final Fantasy 14 is that they wanted to create something that felt very international. And so a lot of things that had to do with naming, that had to do with the lore and the mythology that they were drawing on, they wanted to do something very Western. You had this team that wanted to create something that felt Western, but Western through the eyes of, a Japanese devs. And so having me there and having the localization team on site meant that they could come to us and ask us ideas about,
is this Western?
Is this Western enough? Or the thing is, or they'd have these ideas that they thought were Western.
You're like that.
But we're like, no, sorry about that. But I don't know if that's gonna. I mean, we can try to take that and So
I can only imagine some of the stuff that must have come your way. You're like, well,
I mean, you get some terms that are okay, like they just open a dictionary and they're like, oh, this word means
you're like,
this, and I'm like, okay, it means that, but maybe in the third definition, if you use it in this, but you normally no, sorry. And so it's just a lot of back and forth with this team to create this world. But, as 1.0 development it was kind of a mess at times.
So, what was, obviously you were mentioning that it was less kind of collaborative and more focused on just Japanese first. What was the push on do you think the Japanese side to maybe try and get more of like a global view on the game?
I think especially, when you're creating an MMO and it's a global MMO, that your audience is not going to be just Japan. Your audience is not going to be just one region. They wanted something that was global. And I think that was what they're aiming for back in FF11. FF11 was a lot more popular in Japan. I think it's just because of the PlayStation. Having an MMO on the PlayStation was not something that I think the West was ready for, just hardware-wise and also internet-wise.
I know the Ethernet made it to the PS2 in Western. Did it ship with the Ethernet?
I mean, you could get the unit. There was a little thing you could plug into the back that did have the Ethernet plug in it. It was just not common at all. And the biggest thing that was the biggest problem at the beginning of the Final Fantasy XI's life was that internet speeds were just I mean, in Japan, you have a small country and everyone got ISDN when it came out. And then when you had the optical fiber, everyone got it because a small country infrastructure was there. America, it's AOL just closed last month. I think people were still having dial-up until last month, 2025, and that's back then. Back in 2000, I think, what was it, 2005 or 6 when the first Final Fantasy 11 came out. No, it was all dial-up. It was all old modems and the infrastructure is there. No one could play the game. And so it wasn't, but that was the thing. They still had this vision of wanting to create this MMO for the world. They looked at they looked at the RuneScapes, they looked at the EverQuests, and they're like the Ultima Onlines, and this is what we want to make. We want to make something that brings the world together and does this. And so they always had this kind of, okay, we're making it in Japan, but we're thinking about the world. And that's something that the team has maintained, even though you've gone through lots of different team members from 11 to 14 1.0 to 14 what it is now. There are still that ethos of we're making the game for the world is still there. And that's why I think they put a lot of emphasis on localization. You have a localization team that's in-house for not just the English, but also French and German. Those versions, having not just doing localization, but also getting the feedback from those team members. When you have an area that's kind of based on, old Germany,
Right.
you have the German team there to give, feedback on, okay, what kind of terminology do I want to use here? Or, you know, what's going to fit in the game or not? And always kind of having that back and forth and having us to, it's great for us because we give that feedback, but also us being there means that we're also connected to the team. So if we have any localization questions, we can ask them immediately. And it just keeps, it's a perfect setup for everyone, I think. And I think the world benefits.
Yeah.